DelmarvaLife goes purple today in an effort to help our friends and loved ones who are battling addiction. Think about the habits in your life. You brush your teeth every day in an effort to boost your oral hygiene. You wash the dishes or run the dishwasher every evening after dinner to ensure the kitchen stays neat and tidy. Or maybe you have a habit of watching DelmarvaLife every day at 5 p.m. because you want to stay in the loop of what's happening on Delmarva. Hey, we love that habit. The point is, habits mold us into the people we are. Simply put, positive habits help us, while negative habits can bring us down. Our next guest knows firsthand, and we would like to introduce you to Joshua J.T. Frank. He is the founder of Consequence of Habit and a proud veteran. J.T., thank you so much for your service, and thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate that, and thank you for the nice intro. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so before we get into the program, we want to learn about you. You say that negative habits impacted your life. Tell us about it.
Sure. So 2019, I kind of came to a crossroads in my life. Like you mentioned in the beginning, I'm a veteran. I'm a current first responder. But I realized, although I had some great habits, there was a couple that were really affecting different parts of my life. I had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. You know, I say that and a lot of people think, they have an idea of what that means. I'll say that the consequences to my relationship with alcohol weren't as severe than it is for some other people. But it was this thing that I kept going back to, right? It was this kind of blueprint that was shown to me. I saw a lot of my peers using alcohol as a way to kind of cope with everyday life, maybe stresses that they've gone through. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to make a change. So 2019, I made a choice. I decided, hey, I've got this one thing I can't stop doing, and I'm going to do something about it. So made a change. And after that, I became fascinated with this thing around habits and the impact that they have on our lives.
Touched on the power of habits, good and bad. Can you weigh in on that?
Sure. It's a double-edged sword. Like James Clear wrote an amazing book called Atomic Habits. And he says, each action we take is a vote for the type of person we want to be. I look at habits as great insight to who we are, not what we put out to the world, not what we post on social media, but really if we look at what we do on a daily basis, you can really have some insight. Now, you may like what you see and you may not, right? But it's through that examination we can start to make these changes and say, hey, I don't want to do this thing anymore that I've done. I know it's been destructive in my life. And it doesn't have to be, I'm always careful. My story was around alcohol, but we all have our things, right? Technology is something that affects us all, obviously for all different types of substances. So, it's just examining those things, deciding where, have some brutal honesty with yourself and saying, hey, what do I need to do to make these changes to make me a more successful, happy person, has more of a sense of agency in my life.
Now, through all of this, you created Consequence of Habit. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, like I said, I stopped drinking in 2019, 2020. I started a podcast, and it was during COVID, and I just started talking to people about habits. I had on entrepreneurs, I've had people in recovery, I've had professional athletes on, and I was just curious. So let's talk about, what do you do on a regular basis, and has it brought you success or has it compromised you in one way or the other? Fast forward a year, and the podcast took off. We still continued to have an amazing audience, and I said I want to do more. So we filled out the paperwork to become a 501c3 nonprofit. And we now hold workshops and speaking events and hold classes and courses, just to help people improve their habits. We demonstrate, we show them ways to do things differently, maybe different ways to cope with stress and trauma, so we don't lean on those things that we know are not helpful.
And this all applies to people who struggle with addiction?
It's across the board. And I'm always careful that, yes, we do, this process works for addiction. Like I said, it's one of the ways that I stopped drinking, but at the same time, it's not specifically for that. We're not a recovery organization, although that we have a lot of people in recovery involved in it. But like I said, we all have something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the more you start to connect that, some people say, hey, look, I don't have a problem with anything. And I may say, take your phone out. Look how much time you spent on your phone the last week. You can tell me if you have complete agency over your life.
So what do you say to someone who's watching and saying, yeah, I know I have these habits and I'm trying to break them, but I just can't. What is your message to them?
I would say you may think that you can't, but it's about the systems that are in place, right? It's not a lack of willpower. It's a lack of systems that you have in place. And there's certain things you can do around habit stacking. You can, if you have a habit that you want to run every day, you got to make sure you got your running stuff out the day before, and it's right next to the coffee. So you have that habit of getting coffee. Next thing, right next to your on the floor there is your running gear, right? So we make it easy, and it's
Mm-hmm.
small steps along the way. It's just this idea of compound interest. You don't have to kill yourself right away. You take these small steps, and then you reward yourself. You say, hey, I did this thing I said I was going to do. I mean, you give yourself a little bit of reward, and these things build on you mentioned brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. It becomes an automatic thing, and that's the goal of what we're doing at COH. Is these things become automatic. You don't think about them. And when you make these little changes over a period of time, you look back and you see a substantial change. It may not feel like it day to day, but that's the beauty of it.
JT Frank, founder of Consequence of Habit, thank you for coming
Thank you.
on The Purple Show on DelmarvaLife. Have a
Thank you
great
for
afternoon.
you too. Thank you.